sure there's a lot of people on here that's Xbox fans that want a Spider-Man game on the Xbox platform. And it looks like in the past, Xbox has actually had the opportunity to get it, and they didn't take it. But before we get on with the video, you guys know how it is. Hit that like button if you guys enjoyed the video. You can always subscribe to the channel for weekly content. And don't forget to go over there and follow me at Twitter at LordAddictILP. Without any further ado, let's talk about Spider-Man on the Xbox platform again. What's going on, you guys? Gaming out here coming at you for another video. We have talked about this before, and what we're going to talk about today is Spider-Man, any kind of really Marvel comic book game whatsoever coming to the Xbox platform, and it's something you haven't seen at all. For the most part, all of that stuff, if it's been made, unless it's been made by a third party, has always been on the PlayStation platform, and you've even seen some on the Switch, you know, the Marvel Ultimate Alliance, but yet it always seems to miss the Xbox platform in terms of like exclusivity. Obviously, you got stuff like, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy, the Avengers coming to the Xbox platform, but in terms of their exclusivity, you don't really get that on Xbox. And I've always thought that that was more on Sony utilizing the Spider-Man licensing on the movie side to leverage Marvel into giving them more access to the gaming portion of their IPs. And that's what I still stand on to a point with stuff like Wolverine, but that could have just been because Spider-Man did so well that they felt comfortable giving Insomniac another game such as Wolverine. But what happened seems is back around in 2014, Marvel was done with their Activision deal, or not necessarily done, but they were done with Activision, and they wanted to shop around for someone else for a home for the actual IPs of Marvel. And it looks like they did go to the platform holders, and Sony was very more open to getting some type of Marvel IP exclusive to their platform. And it looks like Xbox straight up told them, we're focusing on what we're doing now. We're not really looking to expand into anything else. So a lot of people are naturally upset with this because people such as myself, I've said it a few times, they need their own comic book hero. I don't care what it is at this point. Get a Captain America, Black Panther, something. It doesn't even have to be, you know, Marvel. Go over there and get something, maybe Spawn, something from the DC, like Batman. I know Rocksteady is over there just chilling, waiting to be purchased from WB. Now I do think WB, and I believe their name is Discovery, are waiting for their next games to come out to see whether or not it's going to be extremely profitable before they go out and really stand tall on want to sell these IPs, these developers at WB. And I feel like if they do well, they might stay in the game a little bit longer, but if they don't do well, it's going to be like a flash sale going on. Discovery's going to want to get rid of everything WB games related, and if that happens, that is the perfect opportunity for Microsoft to swoop in, pick up Rocksteady, a developer that has been famous for making superhero comic book type games, and go ahead and take that talent and make something superhero related. Now I know a lot of Xbox fans feel like they don't need this. They're doing their own thing. They're making RPGs, they're making first person shooters. They don't necessarily need a comic book hero type of game. And I will agree with you to a point, but I'll disagree with you and I'll push back to this. I do personally feel like the fact that Spider-Man is exclusive on a platform is not necessarily devastating to Microsoft and Xbox, but it is a huge thorn in their back. Imagine how big Spider-Man's gotten because of the MCU exploding. Now clearly it was big before the MCU, but I would say and think we can all agree that the MCU has made Spider-Man even more mainstream than it was. And when people are going into GameStops, Walmarts in the holidays and they're asking, yo, I hear there's a Spider-Man game, we just got through watching the last Avengers, etc, whatever Spider-Man's in the future, where is the Spider-Man game? And they say it's only on PlayStation. Look, that might not be like a huge portion of people, but I can tell you right now, it is definitely millions of people that will buy a PlayStation just because Spider-Man is exclusive on that platform. And I, for one, think that's something they need to address. Look, we get it. They went out there, they told Marvel in 2014, we're not making a Spider-Man game. We don't want to make anything Marvel related. We're kind of sticking to our own guns. And Sony took that ball and they went home with it. And they came out with something a couple years later called Spider-Man. And it did well, 2018. So that was about maybe a 3 to 4 year development cycle, depending on exactly when they finished Sunset Overdrive. And look how successful Sony has been because of that decision. Now, I'm not going to really hold Microsoft and Xbox too much to the fire, because this is a time that Xbox just wasn't at that place they are now. They were still recovering from a really bad launch of a gen. They were recovering from switching leaderships at the beginning of the generation. And let's be real here, during this time, Microsoft didn't even know if they wanted to continue the Xbox brand. And it is rumored that around that 2014-15 range, they were looking to possibly selling the Xbox brand. So that's why for this particular incident, I'm going to give Microsoft a pass for this. Now, it would have been nice that they looked in hindsight at that time and recognized that, you know, Marvel is a huge brand to be able to work with. And they should have, you know, for the sake of maybe there being a future of the Xbox brand, went ahead and signed some form of a deal with them. Maybe they wouldn't get Spider-Man, because I would assume that Sony already got that, but they could have got something like Iron Man, you know, maybe Thor. And I wouldn't really want them to get Thor. Iron Man, Black Panther, something like that. Now, especially Iron Man and Captain America, because this is during maybe the beginning of the height for the MCU and their universe before, you know, all the Avengers started coming out back to back. And, you know, I can understand at that point, I think the Civil War hadn't come out, so Spider-Man wasn't officially in the MCU. But like I said, that is a reason that maybe you would pass up on Spider-Man. But at the same time, I don't really think you can use that excuse, because some of the older Spider-Mans didn't do well. So maybe that's what Microsoft was looking at. But it's just like, just because Activision dropped the ball on a few of their Spider-Man games does not mean that Microsoft would have dropped the ball. And I feel like they need to give themselves a little bit more credit than that. But then you want to look at that time, Microsoft and Xbox didn't really own these studios that they own now. They own like 4 to 5. Maybe that was something they looked at. They was like, we might keep the Xbox platform. Let's go ahead and sign some type of deal. But even if we do, we don't really have anyone to make this game. And I think that is a lot of the reasons that Microsoft turned down the ability to make any form of comic book games. Now, obviously, in hindsight, it was a mistake. They should have done it. But, you know, back there in 2014, 15, they didn't know where the Xbox brand was going to be in 5 years. They didn't even know if they were going to stay in the gaming industry. Like I said, it was highly rumored that they were looking around to see who would actually want to buy the Xbox brand. And Phil Spencer swooped in and gave them some form of, you know, let's try something like Game Pass. Now, obviously, I don't know if Phil Spencer came up with the concept of Game Pass, but he definitely probably signed off on trying to find some form of a service to keep their interest in the Xbox brand. Now, I would say now they would actually do one if they had a studio to make it, but what's funny is even now they don't even have a studio to make it. That's why I feel like WB would be such a good concept for Microsoft and Xbox to acquire, because they need a fighter, which is NetherRealm, and I do think they need a comic book game, which would be Rocksteady. And, you know, that's all really much for the video. Like I said, I definitely understand where everyone's coming from. You know, when you look how well Spider-Man's doing, everyone wants to say, Microsoft, you had a chance to give Xbox this W back then in 2014. But I will say, for this particular incident, like I said, this isn't something that I don't think they could have done back then, because they didn't even know if they're going to keep Xbox, and they have a studio to make it. So I don't really see any way out of that. But anyway, put in the comment section below, were you guys disappointed when you heard this? I was like, man, if only they knew what they were doing now back then, I think they would have actually signed that deal. But it is what it is. There's nothing you could do about that. But put in the comment section below how you guys feel about this. Like I said, I'm curious to hear you guys' opinions. I'll read them in the comment section. And until next time, this is Gaming Addict. I'm out of here. Peace.